Akwaba, welcome to this week's edition of Ghana in Focus. Myself, Kwame, Ghanaian writer, broadcaster, journalist, podcaster, historian, and entrepreneur. And in this week's edition of Ghana in Focus, it's a very, very interesting one. Why Ghana must not use electric vehicles, but rather choose solar cars. So that's the theme for this week's show. Why Ghana must not use electric vehicles, but develop its own solar-powered car industry. All right, so before we get into the show, if you like what you hear, please share to your friends, family, social media networks. Subscribe to Ghana African Focus on YouTube. Hit the notification bell, meaning that YouTube will notify you every time we download a new podcast. Also, we're on Spotify. Look out for Ghana African Focus on Spotify. Hit the follow button, meaning that every time we upload a new podcast, Spotify will notify you of it. All right, and like I've been mentioning for the last few weeks or so, Expat Live Ghana will be hosting a Ghana Relocation Summit to be held at the Accra Regional Hotel. That's wholly owned by Indigenous Ghanaian on April 1, April 2. Okay, so if you're serious about relocating to Ghana, then this summit is a must for you because it will give you the blueprint that you need to relocate to Ghana. So this has been hosted by Expat Live Ghana, an African-American couple, Ayo and Tony. Just Google or just put in YouTube Expat Life Ghana. You will get all the videos that they've done. Their transition from Texas to Ghana. And in that time, which is 6 years, they've been in Ghana, so they've got a lot of experience, and they've been able to put together a trusted team of lawyers, real estate developers, successful business people from the diaspora and Indigenous Ghanaians who will give you a lot of very, very useful information that you need for your own transition. And so, you know, the big government ministers there, possibly the president of Ghana, there'll be bankers telling you how to open a bank account in Ghana and also what you can invest in Ghana. There'll be real estate developers talking about types of housing in Ghana and also the framework as to how you can get a property in Ghana. There'll also be mortgage providers if you want a mortgage in Ghana, which is different from America or the Canada or the UK. And also there'll be people from the diaspora who have come to Ghana who have been successful in their transition. So, like I said, you don't want to miss this. So I'll leave you the link as to how you can register to the fullness to the show. So if you can't be in Ghana, April 1, April 2, you can also register to attend virtually, okay? So you can be in Ghana between April 1 and April 2. If you can't make it, then you can attend the conference virtually. So I'll leave the link to this very, very important summit in the fullness to the show. All right, so let's get into the show, looking at why Ghana should not import electric vehicles. However, create its own solar-powered car company. Now, you know, there's a drive right now, particularly in the West, for electric cars, but also some African countries, Ghana included, have, you know, bought into this idea. And my thing is that why do we always have to copy what white people do? Yeah. So because they do this, we have to do that. You know, because they say there's climate change, we believe there's climate change without doing our own research. Because they say there's you know, this thing about GM food, we also want to eat GM food. Yeah. Because they have, you know, they eat cornflakes cereal, we also want to eat cornflakes. Why? Why are we copying anything that they do? So this electric car is for them because they want to ease themselves of fossil fuels, yeah? But we in Africa, Ghana, we don't need to go to the electric car route because solar power is something that we can use to create our own car industry that will also give jobs for Ghana, that will also bring wealth to Ghana, and more importantly, save the environment and also make Ghana less dependent on, importation of oil. So I'll come more to that, I'll break it all down in this podcast. So today, we're talking about something that could not just transform Ghana's economy, but revolutionize the economy, Ghana's energy security, and position Ghana in Africa's technical future. So right now, Ghana stands at a crossroads. On one path, importing electric vehicles that are often expensive, foreign controlled, and dependent on an unstable electricity grid. On the other path, Ghana has the opportunity to become a homegrown solar, or to develop rather, a homegrown solar-powered automotive industry. Designed in Ghana, built in Ghana, and powered by Ghana's sun. So this podcast is not just about cars, it's about job creation, it's about industrialization, it's about women's empowerment, energy security, and more importantly, keeping wealth in Ghana. All right, so we're going to break it down for you as to why Ghana should develop its own solar-powered car industry rather than importing electric vehicles. So, electric vehicles sound modern and progressive, doesn't it? However, Ghana, it comes with more serious structural problems. First of these is our electric supply. So in Ghana, and let's get back to Mahama 1.0, particularly the last year, 18 months of Mahama 1.0, there was massive power outages in Ghana, called Dumso, in the last year of the Akufo-Addo government, there was also these power outages in the country, So the reason for the power outages in the country is three-pronged. One, and I've said this in many other podcasts that I've done over the last 5 years. One is that the electricity company of Ghana is in huge debt. Huge debt. I think it's about something like $3 billion US. Because a lot of people in Ghana either don't want to pay for electricity, and there are some big men in Ghana, big men in Ghana, and some of these churches in Ghana, and some even state institutions who are not paying their electricity bills. And we know who you are, So that's a big issue, the debt that is choking ECG. Secondly, there's been no new electricity infrastructure since a Champong, So Nkrumah set up, the Akosombo Dam that became a blueprint for hydroelectricity in Ghana, And then that was carried on by General Putua Champong, who built the Pong thermal plant in the 70s, But since then, there's been no major infrastructure development within Ghana's electricity sector, meaning that a lot of the equipment in Ghana is obsolete, is old school, hasn't been upgraded, and is and to a certain degree, it's rotting. And the third reason why there's doomsday in Ghana or power outages is because of lack of investment in new technologies, So all those three reasons has compounded as to why you had a lot of doomsday in John Mahama 1.0 and the last year of Nana Addo Akufo-Addo's government, Now, even though since Mahama came, 2.0 came, Mahama's paid about 60-70% of the debt that agency had. There are still issues to do with debt, There are still issues to do with the national grid itself, the infrastructure, and also the distribution networks. So even though there's been some improvements within the power sector, electricity-wise, in Ghana this year, since Mahama came, the reality is still clear. Power in Ghana is inconsistent. Yeah, because like I said, lack of new technology and old equipment. Yeah, tariffs are high. Just the other week or the other month, it was either last month or early this month. The government, or rather the PURC, which is the Public Utility Regulation Committee in Ghana, has announced a whopping 30% increase in electricity tariffs in Ghana. Yeah. And also, the national grid is under extreme pressure because, like I said, the grid today that exists in Ghana was designed for a population of 10 to 15 million, not 33 million people today that live in Ghana. So if you add residential use to commercial use, yeah, it's putting enormous strain on a aging national grid. So electric vehicles require charging. Yeah, they require a nationwide charging network. Yeah. Ghana simply, right now, does not have the infrastructure in place to support millions of electric vehicles. Yeah. And even if Ghana had that infrastructure, the cost of charging electric vehicle will be too high, bearing in mind the tariffs I've just talked to you about for the average Ghanaian. So right now, think about this now. The average Ghanaian takes home roughly 60 US dollars a month. Yeah. Now, these electric vehicles are not cheap, they're expensive. So let's say Ghana is able to import EVs that cost about $15,000. Now, how is the average Ghanaian on $60 a month? How the hell are they going to afford a car that costs $15,000? And add to that the cost of charging a car. And electric cars can take up to 8 hours to charge. Yeah. Now, bearing in mind the tariffs, right, that is going to eat a lot of that $60 a month your average Ghanaian is getting. Yeah. So it makes the cost of charging a car very, very unbearable for the majority of Ghanaians. Now, another reason why Ghana should not import electric vehicles is because we're exporting wealth. So every time Ghana imports these electric vehicles, right, we are creating wealth for others, whether it's the Japanese, the Chinese, the Americans, or whatever, right? When we import these electric vehicles, we're giving wealth to other people. Yeah. Aside from that, when we import electric vehicles, we import everything. So not just the car itself, but the batteries, the motor, the software, the charging systems, and also the spare parts. Yeah. And all these things are not made in Ghana. They're made outside of Ghana. Yeah. So every city that we spend goes straight to foreign companies. So every city that we spend on the motor, the software, the charging systems, the spare parts, and the batteries, all the money goes outside of Ghana. You'll give me somebody else a job instead of creating jobs in Ghana. Yeah. So this is where solar power comes into it. Yeah. So before we get to that stage, when we give other people wealth, right, we create no local jobs, no local expertise, and no local industry. So the question is simple. Why should Ghana, just because the white man says so, build an electric car future that enriches other nations and impoverishes itself? Why should it? Simple question, beloved. Simple question for the listeners. Now, let me explain why solar vehicles fit Ghana perfectly. Yeah? So, this solution of solar power cars fits Ghana like a glove. Why? Because Ghana has sunlight 365 days of the year. Yeah? Right now I'm in Ghana. Yeah, it's still the dry season. Rainy season starts about couple weeks time, end of March. Yeah, so right now it's hot in Ghana. The sun shines 12 hours a day, more than 12 hours a day. in Ghana. Yeah, no, yeah, 12 hours a day from 6 a.m., 6 p.m. Sun shines in Ghana. So 12 hours a day, the sun shines. There's no winter in Ghana, no snow, no fall, no autumn, no long dark seasons. So Ghana sits on tropical, sits on the equator, the perfect climate for solar power cars. Also, unlike electric vehicles, solar vehicles charge themselves. Again, because of this, it reduces pressure of a national grid. Also, solar power cars eliminate fuel imports. Yeah. And then we see right now in this illegal war on Iran by the US and Israel, it's becoming difficult to get oil because, the world has become dependent on oil because, like I said in my podcast about the war, because of the petrodollar. Yeah. So oil has become a very, very prized commodity. And in the Straits of Hormuz, near Iran, 20% of the world's oil supply comes from that area. And right now, because of this war, Iran is blocking that pathway called the Straits of Hormuz. Yeah, making importation of oil very, 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 very difficult. Yeah, and precarious. So by having a solar-powered automobile industry, Ghana could eliminate this fuel support or sort of rather this fuel imports, yeah, and not become a hostage to these geopolitical wars that are manufactured, particularly by America, yeah, for its own purpose. And let's not forget, war is big business. So somebody somewhere is making money from this war. I was reading that at the US Congress, right? They said that the cost so far to this war is 11 billion. Yeah. It could be even 10 times that much. Who do you think is making that money? Yeah. And also oil has shot up from $70 a barrel to $103 a barrel. You don't think somebody's making money? You don't think some of these, US oil companies are making money because of this war? So, by having solar power cars in Ghana, it would eliminate our dependency on oil and also fuel imports. Again, it democratizes mobility because electric vehicles are expensive in Ghana. $15,000. How many Ghanaians earning average $60 a month? How many are going to be able to afford to buy a car that is worth $15,000? However, if we produce our own solar power cars, yeah, we fix it ourselves. All the parts, the battery is made in Ghana. It is also assembled in Ghana. That will make solar power cars cheap in Ghana. Let's say tops $5,000. Yeah. So even a Ghanaian on $60 a month can be able to actually put in for car finance to be able to pay small, bit by bit, a $5,000 solar power car. So, unlike electric vehicles, solar powered cars do not require massive charging stations. Yeah. The sun is a charging station. So in Europe and America, you see all these, and Asia, you see all these electric vehicle charging stations, right? Yeah. Solar power car doesn't need that because the sun powers the car. The sun is your charger. So based on this, then, this is the kind of technology that allows Ghana to leapfrog to be a leader, not a follower. So rather than follow the white man and the Chinese and Japanese, oh, electric car, I think it's going to be a big thing. No, if we create our own solar powered cars, Ghana could become a leader in solar power technology. Yeah. So, and there's even a precedent for this. So Africa per se skipped landlines and went straight to mobile phones. Yeah. So Ghana, Kenya, Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Morocco, etc., didn't have landlines like Europe, America, and Asia. We went straight into mobile phone, yeah, and and mobile phones has exploded in Africa. The same way, Ghana can skip the electric vehicle dependency and go straight into solar powered car automobile industry. Yeah. So I'm going to tell you how a solar power car industry keeps wealth in Ghana. So this is where the economic logic becomes undeniable. So a solar powered car industry in Ghana means solar panel factories. So as part of Mohammed's so-called 24-hour economy, solar power cars rely on solar technology. Solar technology is predicated by having the solar panel factories. So we can have factories in Ghana that can be building solar panels. Also, battery innovation hubs. So we can create solar powered battery innovation chargers systems. Again, we can create solar powered car assembly plants. So rather than have Nissan and VW in Ghana, where assembling their cars, we can assemble our own cars by having our own indigenous Ghanaian car assembly plants. Yeah. And aside from cars, we could also have solar powered buses, solar powered vans, and solar powered motorbike. Yeah. And because of this, we could export across ECOWAS and also the rest of the African continent. This is what we call bringing it home, industrialization. Yeah. So not depending on somebody else and not importing somebody else's vehicles, but creating our own jobs. Yeah. By having our own factories, by creating wealth that stays in Ghana. So what I've mentioned, every stage from the batteries to the hubs to the car assembly plants, etc., every stage creates jobs. Every stage builds skills that are transferable. Yeah. And every stage keeps wealth circulating inside of Ghana, not capital flight outside of Ghana. This is why Ghana has to go to the IMF and get money. No. Like I said, in terms of gold, if we get 50% royalty, gold royalty, right, game over. Ghana will never, ever have to go to the IMF or the international market to borrow money. Same way if we had a solar-powered car industry in Ghana. All the money that we get from selling cars in Ghana, also selling cars outside of Ghana, that money stays in Ghana. Yeah? And this is how China has quietly become a green tech superpower by building, not importing. So you see China, not really importing that many solar power cars. Most of the cars not importing electric vehicles. Most of the cars in China, particularly for the internal market, is actually based on green technology. Yeah? And Ghana can do the same. Now, this is the key point that I'm going to mention. So this revolution, yeah, women must be at the center of this solar power revolution. Yeah? So we're going to talk about women's empowerment. Very, very crucial. And as a conscious African, I'm for women's empowerment, 100%. Now, check this now. I mentioned before that the government of Ghana plans to spend 400 million Ghana cedis or $40 million on a women's development bank. However, we know from history that a lot of that money will go to give women in Ghana soft loans and microloans for developing the business. However, microloans will not build generational wealth. Microloans will not industrialize Ghana. Microloans will not create a new class of women engineers, designers, and innovators. Now check this now. Imagine instead, via this solar-powered car industry that we have in Ghana, women are trained as solar engineers. Think about it now. Women are trained as solar engineers. Women designing solar batteries. Women running solar factories. Women leading solar tech startups. Women owning solar power transport fleets. That's how you build a woman-led industrial revolution. So for me, like I said, that 400 million cities should be seed capital for a woman-inclusive solar tech industry, not another soft loans or microfinance scheme. Yeah, because this money, if it goes into a solar power industry, there could be a women's component that will empower the Ghanaian women or the African women, right? And that could create a women-led industrial revolution. That's powerful, beloved. That's powerful. Now, let me go on to the next item, looking at why solar power is national security. Now, check this now. Look at, like I said before, look at the world today. Conflict in Iran right now. Yeah, let us create, and we don't know when that's going to end, because Trump is lying. He don't know, when it's going to end. He's just talking, gargantuan. Yeah. So conflict in Iran right now, that's created oil price volatility. Yeah, like I said before the war, oil was about $70. The war today started 2 weeks ago. In just 2 weeks, the price of oil has gone from $70 a barrel to over $100 a barrel. Yeah, that's oil price volatility. That is going to have a knockdown. That is having a knockdown effect on the Ghanaian economy, because when the oil market goes up, right, the price at the pumps in Ghana will also go up. So petrol and diesel in Ghana will go up. That will have a knockdown effect on transportation costs. That will have a knockdown effect on spare parts importation. That will knockdown effect on food, etc., etc. Yeah. So aside from the oil price volatility, it also affects the global supply chain. And as we've talked about, I've talked about the Strait of Hormuz, which is on the coast of Iran, is responsible for 20% of global oil supplies. That's now been disrupted by Iran. Yeah. And as I keep telling people, and what like Malcolm X said, any nation that depends on imported energy is vulnerable. So right now, because Ghana is not in a position, right, to produce its own crude oil or to refine its own crude oil, Ghana has to import finished oil products or finished petroleum products. Yeah. So right now, because of this war, Ghana and many African countries are now vulnerable to import energy. Where are you getting danger from? Because from what I gather, most African countries get their oil from that area, so-called Middle East, and also they get their gas supply from Qatar. And as we've seen, right, in this war, I think Qatar's been bombed by Iran as a revenge. Some of the Qatar's gas plants have been bombed by Iran, and that has now led to those important plants being closed by Qatar. So there's no liquefied gas being produced by Iran, so by Qatar. And this is making countries like Ghana that depend on liquefied gas vulnerable. Now, a solar car industry will give Ghana energy independence. So Ghana will not need to rely on natural gas, on imported oil products, right, for its energy needs, because solar power will replace oil and gas, meaning that Ghana will become energy dependent, energy secure, and there'll be no doom. So if this war goes on, right, if this war goes on, despite what Muhammad has done, right, if Ghana is not getting gas through the West African pipeline via Nigeria, yeah, and also if Ghana cannot afford to buy oil, import oil into the country to feed the power station, right, you don't think it's going to be doom so in Ghana? power outages that will affect that will affect the ordinary Ghanaian citizen as well as Ghanaian businesses. What happened to the economy then? So this is why solar power is very, very important, because solar power gives Ghana energy independence, energy security. Again, solar power protects Ghana from oil shocks like we're seeing right now, over $100 a barrel. Yeah. Solar energy gives Ghana a more stable transport system. Very, very important. Again, solar power gives Ghana a green economy that cannot be sanctioned with or disrupted, because all that solar power is in-house. It's made in Ghana, sourced in Ghana, supplied in Ghana, supplied by Ghanaians. So no internal or no external warfare, like what's going on in Iran, will affect Ghana's supply of solar power, because all that solar power is in-house, made in Ghana. Yeah? So this is not just about technology, it's about what I keep on saying about sovereignty, freedom, yeah? To do what's in your interest, yeah? Freedom and sovereignty. And so this feeds in, this solar automobile car industry, it feeds in to John Mahama's 24-hour economy. So rather than this electricity, which is very, very precarious in Ghana right now, despite recent improvements, solar power, right, will fuel that 24-hour economy, because 24-hour economy cannot run on an unstable grid that we have in Ghana right now. Very, very unstable in Ghana, even though there's been improvements. Yeah. It cannot depend, the 24-hour economy cannot depend on import of fuel. 24-hour economy cannot rely on foreign electric vehicle infrastructure. However, a solar power industrial ecosystem made in Ghana, built in Ghana, i.e. factories, assembly plants, battery labs, etc., can operate day and night with predictable low-cost energy. That is very, very key in John Mahama's 24-hour economy. And if somebody from the government is listening, you need to consider solar power as opposed to electricity and electric vehicles, because solar power is your ticket to 24-hour guarantee economy. So solar power becomes the backbone of the Ghanaian economy, particularly the 24-hour economy that John Mahama wants to build. Because no 24-hour economy can be built on weak infrastructure, can be built on precarious supply of electricity, can survive on volatile oil prices, can survive on global chains that you have no control over. A solar-powered system will negate all of that, yeah, and will become the backbone, the foundation of a true 24-hour Ghanaian economy, which is free from outside interference and from external shocks. And so in closing, Ghana does not need to follow Europe's or the West electric vehicle path. We can create, we can be innovative, we can build a solar-powered car industry that is African-owned, African-designed, and African-led, especially by Ghanaian women or by women. So there's showing something in Ghana every day. It is time that we turn the sunlight into jobs, wealth, and more importantly, national power, national sovereignty. This is the time, this is the moment, this is the opportunity, this is the solar revolution. So this brings to an end this edition of Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame, Ghanaian writer, broadcaster, journalist, podcaster, historian, entrepreneur. In next week's edition of Ghana in Focus, Mahama will be at the United Nations end of March, and is going to put a motion in place to make the slave trade, yeah, the greatest crime in history. So we'll tell you why that's important and why Mahama is going to make this an issue to United Nations. Yep. So until next week, thank you for listening to the show. And don't forget, stay informed, stay empowered, be sharp, and stay focused. And let's liberate the African mind. So until next time, thank you for listening. This has been Ghana in Focus with myself, Kwame. See you in the next episode.